Aloha and welcome to the Path of Me podcast. I'm your host, Wendy Hutchinson, and I wanted to create a sacred space for soul to soul conversations with people sharing their light through their passion, power, and purpose. Thank you all so much for being here. Let me introduce my next amazing podcast guest. Hey everyone, welcome to the Path of Me. My guest today is the beautiful Julie Deem, who I've known for quite some time. She is the owner and founder of the Business Podcast Editor, which is a global podcasting consulting company. And she also has two podcasts of her own. The first one is United State of Women, which was founded in or launched in 2019 to empower women through connecting them to their power, purpose, and plan. And recently, last year, she started a second podcast, which is the marketing podcast, Not Your Mom's Sales Podcast, which launched in May of 2023 to inspire thought leaders with strategic ways to use their podcast for lead generation. And you also volunteer, Julie, not only as being a single mom and, doing all of this enough, you volunteer for an incredible organization called Allies, which I'd love to talk about as we go deeper into the convo. So welcome, Julie, and thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Wendy. It's true. I feel like you've become one of my closest online friends, my virtual bestie.
Same. I feel the same about you. We were talking just before we clicked record about how so much of our culture has really shaped um, who we were and how we had to kind of unravel some of that programming to kind of step more fully into our authentic selves. And I was wondering if you could speak to that.
Yeah, I think just, both of us coming from an Asian background, my mom is Korean and my dad is military, so he's American, but again, I think it's another area where culturally it's like not known for being very emotional. I think, military is very mission driven.
Right.
And having a Korean mother who was always, we just built in resilience, and you would never know if she was stressed out or overwhelmed. You kind of slowly grow up and learn that there's a filter there, right? There's a mask that we carry, and that mask looks like, we don't cry because we're tough. And crying shows weakness. And with that crying means you're showing a vulnerable side of yourself that people can now use against you. And we don't want to give anyone an opportunity to use anything against us. So we will mask up and we will show our strength so that no one can see us as weak.
That's about how it went for me in my life as well. So I know it, I know it intimately. And I think part of the programming is we're so immersed in it from the beginning that we don't even realize that it's a cultural programming.
Right, right. For me, anytime I would have to deal with difficult things, my, you know, inner work was all around, how do we avoid the pain, right? How do I stay strong? How do I stay firm? And I see that play out in many things in my life, whether it be, just deciding to not go to work anymore because I decided I don't like the job and I'm not going to tell them I'm quitting. I'm just going to not go in because talking to them would, surely mean be uncomfortable and I wouldn't want to see them cry or see me like weak.
Wow, that is really huge. I know for myself, I was so aligned with that program of strength and always wearing that mask, of I got this, I can do this, and I can do it on my own. It led me to a space of being very alone in my suffering a lot of the time because I didn't feel safe being vulnerable with anybody, especially my family, which is so
Right.
interesting because those are the people that most people go, well, they're your closest supporters and allies. And I was like, oh no, I'm not opening that door just in case I get a knife in the back, because I'm vulnerable and I share something.
Right, because they're as much as they are the closest people to your life, they're probably the ones that will judge you the harshest.
Totally, totally. And it's so interesting because as I went on my healing journey, and I don't know if this was true for you, um, what I learned is there are people who are your people who are safe to be open and honest with and vulnerable with, and there are people who are not. So a big part of my journey was learning discernment around that, um, and just being able to open up. So what do you think was part of the catalyst for you that has allowed you to kind of break through some of that veneer of strength and um, be more open and be more vulnerable in your relationships?
Well, I think, when I'm really reflecting on it, once you become a mom, you really become aware of things that you can no longer be unaware to, right, Wendy? Like, I think about your children's feelings and the way they manage stress and the way they manage their emotions and the impact that it has on you and the the weight of that and how you carry those emotions really became a major like opportunity for me to step into my own healing journey and really identify what it is that I want, right? What is it that I need? How do I ask for those things? And I think that, seeing that through my children's eyes and wanting them to be empowered to speak up for themselves and advocate for themselves, it really became a reciprocal relationship, right? Like through that journey of trying to identify what their needs were and what they wanted, I was on my own self-discovery journey of like, wow, it's so easy to give this advice to our children and empower them and try to push them, but who's doing that for myself?
That's that's a huge revelation, right? It's like
Right.
no one. I have to
No
do
one.
it myself, right?
Right. I mean, you're so busy trying to be the perfect partner, right? In your early years of a young adulthood, you're navigating trying to be an independent person. You want to cohabitate with somebody, you want to build with somebody. And in that process, you have learned in order to find that partner, you need to fit a mold. You need to be able to check the boxes so that you are wanted and that somebody thinks that they need you. And in that process, you start the family that you always dream about having, right? You have the kids and you start to see their lives and their personalities and their character develop. And you start to wonder, like, wait a second. I was like all in on this, but I didn't realize at some point I play a part in this too.
What was that like, stepping more forward, and having that revelation?
You know, I say 2018 was a very, very big year for me. And it's because I think about as a massage therapist, I had been working pretty much regularly since 2005. But then when I had children, I kind of took a pause, wanted to discover, do I want to be a full-time mom? Do I want to just work part-time? Do I want to go to college? And as those couple of years went by, I really started to feel alone. Like you said, while you're, being strong,
Mhm,
managing a home,
mhm.
navigating, even just the hormonal imbalances of the first couple years of motherhood, but the honeymoon dust settles quickly, right? When you have children, it's like no longer about you, and everyone emphasizes and reminds you it's no longer about you. And you're thinking, well, what does that mean, right? As I'm going along and counting the years going by, do I have an identity anymore? Am I just a mom? Am I a massage therapist? And I remember in 2018, my daughter is now 8, she was 3 at the time, um, was kind of gaining some independence, and I was feeling like this next level of freedom was becoming unlocked, okay? And so this brunch come around, United City Women Power Brunch, Kalina, her brunch had been something I had consistently heard about every year. And in 2017, I told myself I probably needed to be there, but I didn't go. And in 2018, it was when I was like, you've got to stop thinking you're gonna do it, just go. I volunteered. I helped out with the registration table. Um, it changed my life. Like, it really put me in a position to really understand, like, you know what? It's okay. Like, it's okay to figure out what you want. It's okay to figure out what you need. It's okay to ask for those things. And in that process, that's where I really started thinking about starting my own business. So the seed started to plant of, I don't need to have a massage practice working for somebody. I can work for myself. I can pursue dreams that I have of my own, whether it's college or another adventure. And at the same time, I started discovering podcasting. And I thought, you know what? Let me launch a podcast to serve in my community, to amplify this brunch, to give back because I felt like at the time this brunch was, something that was big in my life, and giving women their voices back became really important to me.
That's huge.
How many women are going around like thinking, it's just not about me anymore. It's all about the kids. And it wasn't about me when I first got married either, because it's all about making my partner happy. Like, so when is my time, right? When is
Exactly.
my
When is it
time?
our turn? And I think a huge part of it is we were so programmed and conditioned to filter ourselves down and just keep diminishing ourselves and our needs and our core essence to fit in these boxes to make everyone else happy. And in that process, you really lose yourself. You lose your sense of value, you lose your sense of self, you lose your identity because then you become the wife, the mom, the everything that's actually part of you, but not you necessarily.
Well,
So
and
how
even
did you
just,
find your way back?
yeah, I don't even know if I have found my way back, right? I think I'm still figuring that out. But I always tell women, I think about this often, and it's dinner plans, right? When you're dating and your, partner asks you, where do you want to go for dinner? We're so quick to put it on them, right? Like, well, where do you want to go? Like, I don't
Right,
really care.
right.
And that small act really sets the tone for the relationship long term.
Mhm.
So later you have children and it's like, whatever the kids want, if they want McDonald's, who cares if I hate McDonald's? We've had McDonald's 5 days this week. What's another day, right? Chicken nuggets for life. It's okay. We're so quick to sit in the back and think like, I'm here to serve. I just want to, it makes them feel good. So let me do this for them. We have to stop doing that
Yeah.
because while it is great to give, while it is great to serve, it's also great to have your own cup filled too. And if you're not taking time to, like, maybe you were craving Panda Express that day, it's okay to speak up and say, hey, like we've had McDonald's for 5 days now. Would it be okay if we got Panda Express instead? Or let's go hit the commercial parking lot that has the McDonald's and the Panda Express so mom can get her Panda Express
Right,
too.
right. I think we also forget that we're actually modeling for our children how to advocate for themselves and how to stay in their power and speak for themselves and speak their truth, right? When we're modeling just constant compromise, that's what they're learning is normal, especially as women, right? Is,
Right.
oh, the woman always compromises and settles and does that for the greater good. But ultimately, what I found to be true for me was it got to a point where there was just nothing left of me to give because I was never pouring in. I was only pouring out all the time. And year after year, your energetic reserves you just get down to nothing. You can't
Right.
pour from an empty cup. And that's just so true, right? So I had to really be intentional about learning how to pour in and not just pour out. And it was such a
Yeah.
process for me to do it without guilt. We could still do it, but then I had guilt. So I had to work through all these layers of healing to get to a place where I could do that in a healthy way, without any emotional baggage attached to it.
And that's why I think that, I'm still coming to it. It's a forever process, right? And I think learning to love ourselves and learning to love ourselves well is
Mhm.
going to be a consistent learning, growing experience as it should be. How can we ask from somebody what we need if we don't know?
Good point.
And then we're all upset with our partners because, how dare they not figure it out for us?
Yeah, it's so important. I think also to speak to that is learning how to speak our truth is a huge part of this journey because I don't know, in my household, conflict avoidance was a thing. You didn't want conflict. So you stuffed and buried a lot of things to avoid conflict. and that was really challenging because it makes speaking your truth very uncomfortable. And I think a lot of people ultimately shut down and never communicate their truth and they just get resentful.
Right, right. I mean, think about it just on a basic level, right? If you have friends and you just discovered like this new TV show and you're so excited to tell your friends, but before you even had a chance to say anything about the show, you walked into your friends talking about this terrible show and how dumb it is. And like now you're like, oh, now I don't want to say anything at all, right? It's not conflict avoidance, but it's, you don't want to step into that and feel judged and feel like now anybody has an opinion of you that's different than the one that they had before you said that.
And I think a lot of, for us, being in the Asian culture is about not rocking the boat and belonging, but not only belonging, looking good while belonging, looking successful, right?
Yeah, you
Checking
buy
all the,
that designer bag because you need to fit in
yes,
with Mrs. So and so.
yeah, just checking all those boxes, right, was so important. So I've found that as I've learned more about who I actually am and what my values are, I've been able to really let go of a lot of the attachments to what other people think, you know, and the
I mean,
relationships that weren't really supportive or real for me.
right. You hit a tipping point where you're just like, what's the worst that could happen? The people that don't support me leave? Like, okay.
Also, we're alone anyway when we're in it, right? And so,
If you talk to anybody and they still don't talk back to you, then hey,
yeah,
you're still there.
exactly. But once you realize your value and you start to create actually meaningful relationships, you can be more vulnerable, you can be more intimate, you can be more honest, and there's a reciprocation there. It's not just a one-way street where you're giving at your expense all the time. So I've watched you just really bloom and grow into yourself, through creating your life and your business. Specifically, you're going to speak at a conference and a podcasting conference. What does that feel like to be breaking out and being a presenter instead of just attending?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's cool because this isn't the first time I've spoken at Podfest, but I think in general, like knowing that you're being in a place where people actually seek you out and they want to hear your experience, they want to hear your knowledge. It is cool because again, like this wasn't like I went to college to be a podcaster, right? It wasn't like I went
Right.
to college to go start a podcast business. And so
Right.
when I was in that journey through 2018 to 2020, I really was able to discover a passion that I didn't know I had. And outside of sharing the voices of other women in my community, I learned that the skill set around podcast editing was something that I really enjoyed. And it was a skill set that I really leaned into heavily in 2020 when I couldn't do massage. So I think about, now having full circle, making this as my full-time income and having the flexibility to be there for my children. Um, I am in such a full state of gratitude, like abundantly gratitude, grateful for everything that has led me to this, but also looking forward to what's to come, right? This event is one that I'm looking forward to attending because I've gone a couple times now, right? I have friends that I'm going to connect with again. And, outside of that, those cool things about technology and the cool things about social media and how it is able to place those relationships and those people into your network in a way that we wouldn't have been able to connect with like even 10 years ago, right? Like Wendy, we would not have even been able to connect like this 10 years ago.
I know. I found you on Instagram. That's how we
Right.
connected.
Right. It's so easy to
So
have a negative opinion about social media, but there are some cool things like
I
this that
really
come out of it.
believe that. I really believe that. I know you're so passionate about giving back, and you connected with an organization called Allies, and you've become a mentor for them, but you also have served them in many other ways. Tell me about that and how that has impacted your life.
Yeah, so I kind of felt like the next season of, me processing and figuring out what I wanted and what I needed to find more opportunities to put myself out there. And for me, community and relationships are very important. And so I was very open to, maybe I need to find a space I can volunteer in. And what does that look like? And so I came to learn about allies at another event. They had a table, they were calling out mentors. And I thought, I wonder if this nonprofit has thought about starting a podcast. That's my lane, that's my skill set. I will offer to launch them a podcast at no cost as my way to give back to the community and do something nice and also like plant some seeds. Um, I didn't feel qualified to be a mentor. I didn't think, it's dealing with at-risk teens and human trafficking. It seemed like
Right.
a lot. Like I didn't think I would be qualified for that. So podcasting was the next best thing I could offer to volunteer to
Right.
help them. They were so
Sure.
grateful to come across me.
Yeah.
Um, that was like 3 years ago. So the following year, they had a mentor training coming up, and I decided to sign up to become a trained mentor. I thought, I've been kind of immersed in this. I've learned a little bit, you know, um, they need mentors. So I think it just makes sense that I go through the training and see if it's a good fit for me. I got matched with somebody. They ask you a lot of questions, which obviously, right? You're working with teens, and outside of extensive background checks, I had to fill out a lot of detailed questionnaires. I didn't want to travel more than an hour. That was kind of like one of the things. Like, okay, like how far would you be willing to go?
Right.
Um, I was like, an hour is like the most I would probably travel,
You
right?
have
Like
two
you're,
small kids too, so you have to be
yeah.
mindful of their schedules and everything.
Yeah. I didn't want to spread myself too thin. And I was already going to be meeting this person twice a month for 2 hours. So 1 hour one way would be,
Yeah.
4 hour day
Right.
easily. Um, so they found somebody in my area in Kokomo where I live. And they set up a match meeting for me to meet her. And she ran away. I never got to meet her. I was
Oh,
like, maybe it's just not meant to be, like,
oh,
whatever. Like I went through the training. I feel prepared now. Like if that's the worst
right,
case scenario, I'll just get somebody
right.
else. So, a few months later, they asked me if I would be willing to match with somebody again. And they're telling me all about this young lady and all about her background. And like, we think she'd be perfect for you. You guys have similar interests. Like, she's very easy to talk to. We just think you guys will click really well. Like, okay, yeah, that sounds good. Well, she's like an hour and 15 minutes away. Like just outside of that window, which to be fair, like was really more like an hour and a half, an hour and 45 minutes away because of rush hour traffic. Like I would be having to travel right through like the inner city part of Indianapolis, through that to get to the south side of Indianapolis to go to a city south of that. So it was like,
Gosh, it was a commitment for you to say yes.
yeah. And so this was June of 2023. Um, They were really gracious. They let me pray about it, take your time, really think about this because you're committing to 18 months. So a year and a half relationship with somebody, if you're not sure if you can do this, like don't say yes.
Hmm.
But they did let me know that she would probably only be there for a couple months. Like the plan was for her to go to Lafayette, and that would be about 45 minutes from me. So I'm like, you know what, a couple months, like I can suck it up. I meet her, we hang out, things are great. Like we click right away. Um, Fast forward January of 2024, she was still in the facility. We had not even made enough progress to go on like a community day pass to go out to like grab ice cream.
What?
Yeah, there was a lot of backsliding, a lot of other issues. Like
Wow. Wow.
the journey of, growing isn't always linear.
It's
And
not.
while we had plans to be, getting her out of there in the summer of 2023, now we're here January 2024 and there's no real plan. So, um,
And you're commuting
the whole time.
pretty far. Yeah.
So she got out, I think it was April or May of 2024, and she transitioned to a group home in Lafayette, and now she's at home with her mother. And we just passed 18 months. We're really close. I talk to her on the phone like at least once a week. We go out together regularly. We just went out to see the Nutcracker
That's so
in the middle of
cool.
December. Yeah. So we have a
Wow.
really great relationship. It was really awesome. And since then, I became a mentor coach, and now I oversee other mentor mentee matches and I go out on outings with them. Like I went out on Saturday with a mentor and a mentee. The mentee is 15. She's from a very small town in Indiana and she's currently in a residential facility. And It's her birthday month. So her mentor had offered to do something for her birthday, and the youth asked to go to the mall. Now, the the youth had never been to a mall before, like never ever been to a mall before, okay? And we took her to the coolest, like busiest pop-in mall, Castleton, and it had everything, like, Von Maur, like with the Christmas tree and the piano player. Like
Oh
we
my
did it
gosh,
up.
her eyes must have been like huge,
Oh
just
yeah.
taking it all in.
I was like, don't take anything from the strangers at the kiosk. Like, if you need sales, we went to Maurice's. We are like, if you need sales, you go to the back of the store to look at the clearance. She was able to purchase some sprays from Bath and Body Works. She had never been in Bath and Body Works before. Macy's. We went into Macy's because her request was she really wanted to try Starbucks. So we found a Starbucks in Macy's, and there's an escalator, and she walks by and goes, "Is that an escalator?" I'm like, "Yeah." I said, "Do you want to ride it?" She goes, "Yes." She had never been on an escalator before. So I'm like taking her Bath and Body Works bag, taking her coffee. I'm like, okay, both hands, like just in case you need to grab on.
Gosh, that is so incredible.
Oh, I'll have to text you the picture. It was so
Gosh, that day
incredible,
must have been so magical.
so magical. And I think about these experiences, and it's like, we forget in our busyness and the chaos of our lives that, you know, we as humans are rooted in connection.
Mhm.
We're rooted in community and we're rooted in relationships, and we have the opportunity every day to be there for somebody. And maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a family member, but it could very well just be in a volunteer way through a nonprofit where you can develop connections with these people that they don't have anyone. I
Yeah.
mean, this youth, she's been in this facility since September of 2023,
Wow, that's
over a year.
what's the average stay for them in
Not
a
that long. I mean, I think they try to get them out of there 3 to 6 months.
really? Wow.
Yes,
So she had to overcome a lot, probably a lot of trauma
a
to
lot.
work through. And thank goodness there are spaces like that that can really nurture them and
Right. And
help them through those transitional times.
you don't think about how reciprocal it is on both ends, right? Like it's so easy to be like, oh, so much work taking this child out to the mall and spending my Saturday all day with them. But it's just as enjoyable for us as it is for them.
I did a volunteer thing for a couple of years, and it was for a women's recovery center.
Oh yeah.
And I mentored women one on one for a couple of years. And you know what, Julie? I learned so much about myself. I was so humbled by that experience. And I still reflect back and think about these women, and I just wonder where they are. I mean, they just had so much adversity, not only um, a lot of physical abuse, but just so much adversity, financial adversity, and lack of family support, and just they just had the deck so stacked against them. And we take so much of what we have for granted. It was just very humbling experience for me to participate in that. I thought I
Yeah.
would be giving, but I was actually receiving a lot from for my own personal growth from that experience, you know.
Yeah. You become more compassionate, you
Totally,
understanding more.
totally. I became a lot less judgmental, because if you saw someone on the street, you might judge them pretty harshly, right? But you know, we're all humans. We're all human beings. We all have feelings and emotions and adversity in our lives, and some more than others. So I love that you're so involved and found this organization that really is on your heart.
Oh, it is so in my heart. I think anytime you can be there for our future generation, it's so easy to complain, like, oh, the future generation's gonna screw us over. Like, come on. At the end of the day, like, if you're not pouring into them, then don't complain about them.
Right. If you're not willing to step up, then you probably shouldn't be, you're contributing to the problem instead of solving the
Right.
problem, right?
And back to like the bravery piece, around the courage, around being vulnerability, it's these these kids, I mean, they're kids. They are walled up. They don't trust anyone, and rightfully so. And it's like I took a trauma-informed class yesterday, one of my trainings, and they were talking about how instead of using the word safe space, we can say we want to, give them a space to be brave. We want to create a space for them to be vulnerable. And we see it. I mean, my mentee called me yesterday out of the blue because she was having a really tough day. And I was so thankful. Her mom was gone all day, so she wasn't able to talk to her mom. But I was available and she wanted to talk to me. She just wanted to have somebody to process with. And I thought, I'm so grateful that she sees me as an adult in her life that she can call out if she's feeling alone.
Right. It really takes a lot to create a sacred space and build trust with people who have been really, really traumatized by life, you know? So I'm so glad that you could be there for her. And also that you're being able to apply all this knowledge and support to the other mentors in the program,
I
right?
know I always say if you want to know what it's like to not be able to get out of the facility for months, like I'm your girl, because we were stuck in a tiny little closet with like just a table and two chairs for a very long time, spending 2 hours together every time I came to
How
visit.
mine was too. They couldn't leave. I couldn't take them out. Well, it depended. There was a sliding scale, so some of them I could,
Yeah, they were on a high enough
but they would
level
have
that,
to come back. Yeah. Yeah, it depended on their progress in the program,
right.
as to what was available to them. And I could also see it maybe that being a flight risk.
Very much so. We have had many of those kind of situations.
Yeah. So Julie, if you were to share with people who have struggled with, finding their voice or making themselves a priority in their lives, what would you offer to them? Like what was really helpful to you on your journey?
You know, it's really about checking in with yourself. When was the last time you felt like you were being seen, were being heard? And is there another side to that where, you feel exhausted or disrespected or just, you know, not appreciated?
Hmm.
Check in with yourself because a lot of times it's subtle little things that start to build up, and you don't want it to tip to where you feel like you're a different person. When you start to lose yourself and you don't feel worthy anymore, it's not positive, and you've got to figure out why that's happening, what's going on, and what do you need? Because if you can't ask for what you need, again, like nobody can help you.
That's great advice. I think also a lot of it's about knowing you're worthy of having what you need because I knew what I needed, but I didn't feel worthy of it, of asking for it or taking it or doing it. I
Yeah,
had to
I
really
mean,
sit with that for a long time. Like you have a knowing sometimes a long time before you can take action, right? To
that
honor yourself.
worthiness piece is important because at the end of the day, for sure, like if you don't believe you're worth it, why would anybody else think that?
Right, right. And then I had to come to a place where I actually had to own that I allowed this treatment because I didn't feel worthy. Like I participated in relationships that just weren't healthy for me because I didn't feel worthy of more. It's just like, well, this is what it is, you
Well, and
know?
it could be too that, sometimes we believe that we can love somebody into loving us the proper way that we need to be loved.
Yeah, it doesn't really work that way.
It doesn't work that
You
way,
can try, you can try for a long time, but it didn't work that way in
And
my
it's
case.
funny when you're younger and you see people like in so many different relationships and you think, you know, am I going to be alone forever? And then you get to start dating and then you start to experience what relationships are like. You start to wonder, wow, the people that are always dating, maybe they have other issues. Like they're always jumping from relationship to relationship. Maybe it's not that they're the catch. Maybe they have other things they're not dealing with. And maybe, contentment lies in being alone and really reflecting on what we need to love ourselves better so that we can be good partners for others, so that we can express how we need to be loved and be upfront about it and not feel guilty about asking for that.
Totally. Well, they say you have to become the one to find the one.
Oh, I love that. I've never heard that. But I tell you what, I
Mm.
have been loving the way I've been loving myself the last 6 months, and it's so nice. And I feel almost like guilty for loving myself so well that the next person that comes into my life will really have some work to do to qualify and
Well,
be as
I
good a
think,
lover to myself as I am.
I'm all about energy, right? And I feel like as we heal and we raise our frequency and we become better versions of ourselves, like we are becoming the one, and as we're raising our frequency, we're going to attract someone who is resonant with that. So hopefully it'll be somebody who's done their inner work and they're more self-aware and they're more conscious of um, meeting us instead of expecting things from us.
Right. And I
So
love that.
that's really my hope. And I thought, I've been living on my own for a year, and I thought, I wonder what it's going to be like. And you know what? It's incredible. I love
See,
it.
I know when people ask me how I'm doing, I'm like, I'm thriving.
I
Like,
know.
I feel like
Exactly.
I've been replanted in a new pot and it's
Yeah.
flourishing.
Yes, I
My
felt like,
soil here is rich.
I think too, once you live in your own space, you're just immersed in your own energy and you're watering and fertilizing your garden, and you don't have the distractions of everything else. And it's really amazing who you become when you can bring all your love and joy and energy back to you in this space and in these moments. I know you're still with your girls, so but you just have the sacred sanctuary and space for yourself to really, like you said, being repotted is such a great analogy because you you grow where you're planted is what they say. And so it's like if you create the right environment, you're really going to thrive, right?
Yeah, it's so true. And I think you don't see it until you're in it, and you don't know what it's going to be like until you're through it. And, at the end of the day, it's been really good. It hasn't been easy, but it's been very enlightening, and it's been very cool to also, offer myself the same kindness and grace and compassion that I have been so quick to share with others around me.
Yeah. And also, I feel like as we do that more for ourselves, we are always then pouring from the overflow because we're always filling our cup. So we're always filling our cup and we can pour from the overflow without feeling burned out or we don't have enough to give or enough time or enough resources or whatever. When we're always pouring into ourselves and nurturing our own spirit and soul, we have so much more to offer
Isn't
others.
that
It's
so
no
true?
longer like giving at our expense. It's not you win, I lose.
Right.
No, it's just a healthier exchange with others, I think,
Exactly.
you know. So before we close, I just want to thank you so much for being here, Julie. And I want to say that watching you flourish has brought me so much joy. I am
Thanks,
so
Wendy.
excited to see where you're going because your star is shining so bright. And I just really appreciate you being here today and sharing your wisdom. Do you have any parting words before we sign off?
No, I'm so glad you let me be here. I love checking in with you. I hope to come to Houston one day. Like, I would
Someday
love
we'll meet
that.
in person and it's going to be amazing. But,
Mhm.
I just want to remind you, Julie, and to everybody who's listening, that we have such a ripple effect on the people around us. And often we don't even know it. Often we don't even realize how many lives we're touching just by being the best versions of ourselves. And so this is just a reminder to keep going and to keep thriving and to keep learning and evolving, and expanding in who we are, because we're helping others, even if we're not doing that directly. Even people in our families are watching us and paying attention and impacted, especially your girls. And I think even my sons, even though they're grown, we're still really close. And when you are close, you still have an opportunity to influence them in a positive way, just through your example, you
Yeah,
know?
you do.
So thank you so much again for making time in your busy life. I really appreciate you being here. And to my audience, don't forget to be kind to yourselves, love yourselves, like Julie says, really ask what you need and then make sure that you do it. Do it for yourselves because you're worthy and you're worth it. And I hope you all have a beautiful day. See you next time. Bye.